Welcome to Nature's Newsroom here at the heart of COP26. We're here to discuss threats to the health of the ocean with my panelists. With us we have Vasser Seidel, who is the deep seabed mining campaigner at the Oxygen Project, and Tessa, Director of Uplift. And down the line from Geneva, we have Terrance, founder of the International Dialogues in Underwater Munitions. Welcome to you all. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tessa, I want to come straight to you. Here in Scotland, we're seeing threats to marine protected areas from oil drilling. And this is the Cambo Oil Field. Can you tell us a bit about that and how are governments failing to protect these areas that they say they're protecting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in short, Cambo Oil Field is a huge new oil field west of Shetland that is currently being considered for approval by the UK government. It's at a significant depth. It's one of the deepest oil fields that currently exist in the UK if it goes ahead, and would produce 170 million barrels of oil over its first phase. And it cuts through a marine protected area, which is a huge concern because, for the most part, people have heard about the climate impacts of Cambo Oil Field, but they're much less aware of the significant harm it poses to the local marine ecology. And Cambo Oil Field is, in fact, only the first of 30 new oil and gas fields that are up for approval in the UK offshore, so in the North Sea, in the North Atlantic, over the next 3 years. So it's absolutely crucial that the government says no to Cambo and no to everything that comes after that.
So that seems like a simple message, just don't do it.
Exactly, and actually that's also the message that's come clearly from the world's energy experts and climate scientists. The International Energy Agency, in a report commissioned by the COP presidency, the UK government this year, said that if we're going to stay within the 1.5 degree critical threshold, we can't have any new oil, gas or coal fields. So it really is that simple.
So talking of new threats to the ocean, Vasser, deep sea mining is an emerging industry. What kind of threats could that pose to the ocean?
Absolutely. So as you know so much about deep sea mining imposes major threats, but the first thing that people have to know is what the deep sea is, because it's never a topic of conversation. It's out of sight and very much out of mind. And just in short, the deep sea is one of our most ancient ecosystems, or the most ancient ecosystem on the planet. It's absolutely so fragile, very vulnerable to human disturbance, and it's also one of our most significant carbon sinks. So the impacts that deep seabed mining will have aren't only felt at the mining site themselves and to species in the deep sea, but they will be felt around the world. So what are some of those impacts? So like I said, this is one of our largest carbon sinks. Here we are at COP talking about climate change, and these ecosystems are absolutely vital in fixing and storing carbon, among other things that they are very important for down there. But it will have an effect on the world, and it will exacerbate climate change. It threatens frontline communities, and of course it threatens species throughout the water column, which are also vital, and they're carbon themselves. So deep sea mining should be a non-starter at this point at COP, and really we shouldn't be looking at other extractive industries that will just do more degradation to the planet and also exacerbate our climate crisis and ecological crisis and biodiversity crisis as a solution.
Do we have any ideas on how to go about stopping deep sea mining?
Absolutely. So it's relatively simple. The reason why I kickstarted my journey on starting a deep seabed mining campaign to defend the deep was because I was told at the last COP it's already a done deal and you have no idea what you're up against. I'm 26 years old. At the time I was 24. So for me, it's not an option. And deep seabed mining is absolutely going to be the nail in the coffin of an already dying ocean. The ocean and indigenous peoples are the reason why we don't have runaway climate change today. And the deep sea in particular is the remaining pristine ecosystem on this planet. So, you know, we have to conserve the deep sea if we want to reach our climate targets and also our biodiversity targets and be able to thrive and for generations to come.
So we've heard about how we could stop to looming threats to the ocean, and now I want to move over to Terrance in Geneva to talk about well, something that's more of a legacy, historical impacts that perhaps we can also do something about. Underwater munitions have been dubbed silent killers in the ocean, and we think of this as an old issue, but is there a way to halt the threats that they pose? Terrance, tell us a little bit about what is going on with dumping munitions in the ocean.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's very important to me. I actually believe that the ocean is dying. The munitions themselves have the ability to kill it. What you have to understand is munitions were dumped in large quantities from the 1910s, starting in the English Channel, that was followed by the destruction of the oyster fisheries up until the mid-1970s. Now, people think we dumped these munitions after the war. Well, we did. But we dumped them every year in between the war. The militaries do not pay for disposal. What they do is they simply, when munitions became time expired, obsolete, or damaged, or unwanted, they took them out and they dumped them into the ocean. These sites have accumulated themselves in every sea. There's not a sea that's impacted. When I go into places like the Baltic Sea, or the coast or other ones like this, everything is basically anoxic. And all we find in the economic zone, why people preach about the blue economy, is dead zones. The mustard gas breaks down to inorganic arsenic and creates dead zones spreading across the seafloor, which some people think comes from plastic. We've actually took passive samplers, put them in the water where there's no munitions, and we found that the warfare agents are actually circulating throughout the currents of the ocean, just like the plastics. But this is so serious, it bleaches corals, which is a part of climate action. It kills corals, it creates black spot disease on the crustacean. It does everything people think carbon does. So I'm not saying that carbon and climate action is not a problem. It is. But we need to include the munitions in this as a problem and start looking at a real holistic model of what's going on the planet and how can we turn all those problems into opportunities for us. Because we're smart
Terrance,
enough.
I'm going to jump in there and ask you, yes, what can we do? How do we go about cleaning up these munitions?
Well, first of all, we have a lot of new and emergent technologies that we can clean them up with, but we have no political willpower whatsoever. We have the Chemical Weapons Convention in The Hague, the Netherlands, which is basically a convention to hide the munitions. They have articles within it that says these munitions are not there. So when a country says, okay, I want to go clean up the Beaufort Dike, for an example, which has, I believe, over 2 million pounds of explosives, when it gets up to the senior level, they start to look at stuff like that and they go, oh, well, we signed this agreement that said they're not there. So the next thing you know, the conversation that started about a problem that's actually killing your ocean becomes a non-starter. It just gets left out of the equation. What we need to do is we have to have an international treaty that addresses human health and environment. And then we need to set up underwater regional action centers all around the world, just like with landmines, and start cleaning this stuff up. It's really frustrating for me because for 17 years I've been talking about this, and the only money government spends on it is to try to find ways to discredit what I say.
Thank you, Terrance. So we're here in COP, well, certainly here with Tessa and Vasser. Some wrap-up thoughts from both of you on here we are at a COP. How are these sorts of meetings grappling with threats to the ocean, and what more could be done, do you think? Tessa?
Well, I think in short, the health of our oceans isn't a focus of the negotiations really, or of the main discussions here. And I think that that's a real missed opportunity because, as we've heard, the health of our ocean and the health of our climate are so inextricably linked that to not talk about one when we talk about the other is, I think, not only missing the whole picture, but also missing an opportunity in terms of what the solutions have to be.
Thank you, Tessa. Vasser, what are your thoughts on the role of COP in grappling with deep sea mining and all these other big threats we have to the ocean?
So just to bounce off of everything you just said, because it's all very true, and I would just add upon leaving out the ocean, we will not get to our targets. It's not just a missed opportunity. It is we just simply will not be able to reach our climate goals without protecting the ocean. And that has to deal with deep seabed mining. And right now, and we were talking about urgency earlier, we have a small moment in time that just was made even smaller because the International Seabed Authority is trying to meet in December. And to keep it short and sweet, all you have to know is that in December, they are trying to push forward regulations that will also not include the entire global community, will not be transparent for all the reasons we need a moratorium. And these regulations will set off a global industry that is an extractive industry over 50% of our entire Earth's surface. And COP is absolutely a missed opportunity, not talking about deep seabed mining, not having it on the official agenda. The fact no one here, not a single delegate, the same countries that are part of the ISA is talking about this in an official capacity, it's absolutely a missed opportunity, but it's also wildly inappropriate that it's not being talked about here when it's so linked to climate change and also linked to climate solutions. So,
Vasser, Tessa, thank you so much. Terrance, very quick thought from you on another issue that isn't being talked about here, munitions here at COP. What is your message to the people here? Short and sweet.
I hope people really start to understand that they're in the marine protected areas, they're in the UNESCO sites, they're all in the deep water where they're going to do exploration. I go to the Seabed Authority all the time and I try to get mitigation done, and they're just going to set up millions of plumes and go through the munitions with no care. COP, to me, is a missed opportunity in the sense that our government on one hand is giving out these messages and then going back and doing another thing. And as long as we do that, we're in a vicious circle and we're never going to do anything with this planet to save it.
Terrance, thank you very much. Vasser, Tessa, thank you all for joining me today. Thanks.